This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
It sounds like one of the names they would have for a monarch. It's like Queen Javia the First, Black Radical Queer, among queer Negro women.
All the way from the A, you listen to my favorite lesbian on BRQ.
Hey, stay locked in with your favorite lesbian on Black Radical Queer. Yeah.
Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole, aka your favorite lesbian, and you're listening to Black Radical Queer Podcast, our stories on our own terms. Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole. Welcome back to another episode of Black Radical Queer Podcast. Today I am excited to have someone on who I've been wanting to have on for a while actually. Of course with adulting it can be hard to coordinate, but I wanted to make sure that I got her on now because she has something very special coming up that I want you all to know about in advance so you can get your coins and go support her. So today I have Shanae with me. As usual, I'm going to allow my guests to introduce themselves. We'll talk a little bit about her, just kind of her story and get into the special event that I want to share with you all.
Hey y'all, I'm Shanae. I am in my early 30s. I am young, black, polyamorous, and eternally sick of everyone's shit. That is just kind of who I am. I have been actively non-monogamous for about 10 years. And I've identified as polyamorous since 2012. I have an awesome polycule that consists of 3 partners, and together we have the most adorable son in the entire world, and are looking forward to welcoming more children into our family. By trade, I am an event planner, an entrepreneur, a people person, a coach, a leader. I'm kind of anything that involves helping people. That's kind of my specialty.
So I can verify that the little one is cute as hell because I see pictures of him often. But what I wanted to do was, well, just to let listeners know. So I actually do not know how long I have basically been acquainted with Shanae. I know it's through social media, and I'm pretty sure it's Twitter.
It is Twitter.
I'm pretty sure that it's through Twitter, but it's been a long time. It's been years. It's been a long time.
Right. The internet does that, right?
Right. Facebook is a little more recent. I mean, Facebook, well, we've still been Facebook friends for a while, but that's more recent. Twitter is where it all started. I was following you and one of your partners. And so that's, and I don't know, I think we just probably have a lot of mutual people. I mean, we're black poly folks. So,
right. And I don't even think I knew you were poly when I first started following you. I think we started following each other because of the BDSM aspect. And then I was like, oh wait, she's queer and she's black and she's into BDSM. Follow button. So I think that's, it was just it's only 10 of us in the whole world, so we gotta stick together.
Accurate. So, yeah, I mean, that is typically how people find me is either through kink stuff because of me either posting images or doing classes or whatever, or through poly. That's 99% of what people ask me about. So, yeah, I'm sure they'll be glad to hear your story too. So how did you, so you said you've been actively non-monogamous for about 10 years. It's pretty much the same for me. I was just talking about this in my most recent episode that for pretty much all of my time dating, being in relationships or whatever, I've been some variation of non-monogamous.
Yes.
So how did you figure that out? How did you even come to that?
Well, I will say that I have known that I was bisexual my entire life, right? So that's never been a secret to me. And then in college, I actually fell in love. Most of my attraction was to women. And then in college, I met a man that I just fell completely head over heels in love with. And so it was this huge crisis of conscience for me because I was like, okay, I love this man, but I still love women and I had the capacity to love women. And I was trying to figure out how did I blend all of my desires together, right? I wanted to get married and have children and have a family, but the idea of committing to one person, every iteration of myself committing to one person forever, it never made sense because as we grow and change throughout our life, like we become different people and we kind of add on and stack on to our personalities and to just the things that we enjoy. And so I never understood the idea that you can commit to one person and only that person, not knowing who you or they will be in 10 years. So that kind of idea is something that my husband and I, back when we were dating, we started talking about that early, that our love for one another didn't necessarily rule out the idea that we could love someone else. So it was an idea that we discussed, but it was always very much, in the beginning, it came from a very much sexual perspective. Like, I can have intimate friends, I can have sex. It was definitely more, like, reaching back to last week's podcast, it was definitely more of an open relationship at first. And then as these things tend to go, an open relationship, one day I looked around and I realized I was in a relationship with two people. I honestly just kind of fell in love and did not realize it until I woke up and realized, hey, our girlfriends, we have a girlfriend, and she hasn't left in a couple of weeks. So that's just kind of what we really slid into it very kind of unintentionally. The non-monogamy was intentional, but I think embracing like committed relationships with multiple people is something that happened to us, right? So we discovered that we could do it because we were doing it.
I think something that you just mentioned that I want to point out is you talked about this idea of like being committed to multiple people. And so I want to point that out specifically because there's a lot of misconceptions around polyamory and the idea of commitment. And people think that poly folks are people who cannot commit. And they're not aware that, for one, polyfidelity is a thing. It does exist. There are people who have long-term sustainable poly relationships who are committed to one another. So these things are not these like opposite concepts or whatever. It's not like polyamory is the opposite of commitment or like monogamy is synonymous with commitment because it's not, because there are plenty of serial monogamists and stuff like that. So those things are not mutually exclusive. So point. Right. So I think that I just wanted to point out that that's something that you mentioned that is very important.
Right. But just to put it out there, just so there are no misconceptions, I am not polyfidelitous. I do date other people outside of my polycule, just in case you're waiting around to shoot your shot.
Just put it out there.
Just put it out there, like the
DMs are open.
Yes, you can just slide right on through. Anyway, that shameless plug. But yes, Black polyamory is something that is dear to my heart. When I woke up and realized, hey, I'm polyamorous, then I started seeking community, right? I was like, there must be more people like me out there. So I guess that's kind of one of the ways I found you on social media, is that I was looking for people that shared things in common with me. And when you're first starting out, it can be really difficult to find people who look like you, who are into the things you're into.
It looks real alabaster when you first starting out. Like, I was just like,
porcelain.
Every space is inundated with whiteness. It was just, how did you, so you had already been like actively non-monogamous and kind of doing an open relationship, but how did you go from that to, was it the relationship shifting that made you look at polyamory? Like, how did that even become something that was a concept?
So,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So once I kind of realized what we were doing, that's when we started looking for a framework for it and a way to communicate around it and how to navigate the issues. And like we started doing our research, right? And so research is kind of what leads you to community. I found Black and Poly, which is about over 11,000 member Facebook group that I'm now one of the administrators for. So it's basically like the home for Black poly people on the internet. It's kind of the first place that most people find and come to when they are interested in exploring polyamory in the context of Blackness. So I found my home there, kind of. I found my feet, I found my people, and I started being committed to living out loud as a Black polyamorous person. And that was a huge turning point for me, right? Because it changed it from something that we do in the walls
like
of our
behind
home.
closed doors.
Right. it really switched from a lifestyle to a love style, right? A lifestyle is something that you participate in, and for me, a love style is something that I am. And so I made the active decision to be who I am, in every context. And, whoever don't like it, so that was a big turning point.
So what was that like, going through that and embarking on like parenthood, on becoming a mother and having like a poly relationship? Because, well, I guess before that, with your relationship, like, did you get married from I don't know, I'm trying to, from what I can remember, it seems like y'all were together before you married your husband? I'm not sure, but
okay,
it's the policy was already, okay.
Let's do some timelining. So, today is actually my 5th wedding anniversary with my husband. Woo!
I saw. Happy anniversary. We're like, our anniversaries are kind of close. Mine just passed.
Thank you so much. Happy belated. So my now wife and I started dating in February of the year that I got married to my husband in May.
Okay. Okay.
So we were together prior to the wedding. He and I were polyamorous prior to our wedding. So when we took our vows, we took polyamorous vows. There was a vow to love freely and openly, to have more love and not less, and there was a blatant deletion of forsaking all others from our vows. So this union of ours has been intentionally polyamorous from the start. And at the time, it was something that we just didn't talk about. But I've always had a I don't tell any lies policy. So you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you the answer. And that policy of honesty has personally, for me, morphed into a policy of activism.
That makes sense. Because I was just trying to think back. My memory like, wait, I've always kind of seen the policy. So I was like, trying to figure out the timeline. But so how did you all go from that into parenting? Like, well, I don't know if anybody had kids coming in, but I know that, you had, the little one that I know about. So how did y'all?
So we only have one child right now. What happened was, so my husband and I have been together for 5 years, prior to our marriage, and we were ready for kids. And, my partner, so she's older than us, and she was ready for children as well. And we just kind of, when we got married, we were all three on the same page that we were open to children. And at the time, like, she lived out of town, so I was not quite sure how that would all work out. But, things work out the way they're supposed to. So basically, I got pregnant 6 months after the wedding, and she moved to Atlanta, 2 months before our son was born. So, so that's kind of how we decided that we would have a child together. And at the time that we made that decision, it was a very intentional choice on all of our part to parent together. So that's how it happened.
Did y'all, like, as you were preparing for the birth, like, did you all talk about what you wanted for your parenting to look like together, as a unit?
We did. We actually, because my pregnancy, I had a pretty smooth pregnancy, but my doctor heavily suggested that I would have to have a C-section. And so that brought in some very important conversations about parenting and how we would approach it. Because in the C-section room, you're only allowed to have one other person, no matter what. So that conversation, that path to kind of figuring it out for us really helped us talk through the way we wanted to parent our child, and our future children. So what we decided to do, I guess, is kind of like a good explanation for how we try to attack things. So usually what happens when the mother has a C-section, the partner is in the room and the partner takes the baby out to the nursery while the mom gets closed up. So what we were able to do, since we had 2 adults and there was 2 support people, a baby and a mom. What happened was my husband was in the OR with me while we had the C-section, and my wife was able to immediately receive our son after he was ready to go. So I was never left alone, and the baby also had a parent. So
That's beautiful.
Like, and we have,
I mean, this is because a lot of times, you know, the mom is left on her own to just kind of, you know, go through major surgery, you know, and recover from that. But to have that support is awesome.
And I realized that was the point, right? The point of the way that we were parenting was that we didn't want to do it alone. We wanted our child to have a wider base upon which to build his life. And so we kind of started it out that way, and we have continued that way. He has picked up another parent along the way. I met my girlfriend when my son was 3 months old. And she has been a daily fixture in his life ever since. She too originally lived in another town, and shortly before his first birthday, she moved here to be with us. She does not live in the same household with us, but she lives nearby and is a parent, and is, you know, we're together. We all do life together. The best way to go about that. So that is how.
I think it's really interesting too how things came together in terms of timing, because in terms of timing, everybody kind of like came along right in the kind of early stages, you know, to get on the same page in regards to parenting, especially in that type, and how you wanted to navigate that with the unit, like being able to do that early on. Not saying it's not possible later on, but it's just I feel like it helps, you know, to very like from the start to be like, okay, this is kind of like what we're doing, versus someone who's coming in later on down the line. You know, you already have like an established way of parenting and operating and how you all do this in a communal way. So they'll kind of have to be brought up to speed, as opposed to like co-creating something. So
right,
the
that's
timing
absolutely,
of it, you know.
that is, I absolutely know that it was the timing of the creation of our family was divine. I know that for a fact. But you make a very good point as far as this family was co-created by 4 adults who wanted this. And so there have been intentional decisions made to build what we have. It was not accident. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't luck. This was intentional decisions by adults who were willing to make changes in their life to have the family that they wanted. And as queer people, those are conversations that we have to have, right? We have to have more conversations around how do we create the families that we want.
Right.
Because biology, biology doesn't necessarily just give it to us. It's not as easy for bisexual, lesbian, gay people to have the families that we want. So, you know, we kind of flex our communication skills and our relationship skills because we have to figure it out.
But we get to use it. We get to use it as an opportunity, you know, to really. I talk a lot about as queer folks, like we have this opportunity to curate our lives a certain way, and so we get an opportunity to do that. Something that a friend of mine has mentioned that Janet Mock said, like I think she mentioned in her book. It's been a while since I read it, but she talked about possibility models. And so queer people, Black people, queer people, poly people, we don't have a lot of possibility models that show us what these things can look like. So we literally have to like build them from the ground up ourselves, and then we serve as those models for other people. So that's why I think it's really awesome to like, you know, hear you kind of go through talk through the process so that somebody else can see like, hey, this is a possibility for you too, like of how this can be created. We have it kind of grew from we have this opportunity that came from a disadvantage. We always are making something out of nothing, and so that's really what it is. We have a blank slate, you know, to just create what we want to.
Absolutely, and I think that I know that standing in this place, this like we're on this bridge, right? because we remember, we grew up, we actively identified as queer people when we could not legally marry, right? So we're kind of we're a transitional generation.
Absolutely.
That I believe we have a responsibility. We have an opportunity and a responsibility to set the bar for how we are going to move through the world. And so I think about little Black girls who want a family but don't necessarily want a romantic relationship with a man. And I stand for them. And I think about the little boy who finds himself finds himself bisexual, and he wants to be able to have partners of both genders. I want them to see that you can create not just a relationship, right? Because we see a lot of relationship creating. But I want this to show people that you can create both family and community that looks like you and that feels good to you.
Right.
So that's a life goal. It's it's a life goal.
It's very important though, because we've been told that we cannot do that, and when we attempt to do it, it's undermined a lot, you know. So to continue to do it in the face of adversity, systemic oppression, and all that is a very radical thing. Something that I was talking to a friend about was, you know, I want us to have our own shit. I'm not interested in feeling like, oh, let me try to squeeze in at this other table. Let me try to, like, you know, find my way, you know, find a spot in some of this pre-established stuff. I'm like, no, because it wasn't made for me. We can build our own shit. We're fully capable, and no one's better equipped than we are to build the relationships, the families, and the communities that we really need to sustain us, to, you know, like nurture us and things like that. So I think it is important because we do see a lot of relationship creation, but it is still something that I don't think people realize how much agency they have to really, like, you can cultivate the shit however you want it to look. Like, right. Literally however you want it to look. And the same for community, and you will not be alone. Like, right. Trust and believe there's other people who that's going to resonate with.
Right, and if you don't speak up, who will, right? Who will speak for you? And so you're exactly right. I stopped asking for a seat at the table and decided to build my own damn table. I no longer have a desire to push and pull for a voice, right? I have a voice and I can use it. And that's kind of why that's where the project that I'm working on now came from, that I have a voice and I want it to be heard, and I want to create spaces for other Black polyamorous people and the people who love us to speak and to be heard.
So, perfect segue. So tell us about the event.
So the name of the event that I have co-created with my friend and co-moderator of a group called Young Black and Poly is, her name is Cherie, and together we have created Black Poly Pride. Black Poly Pride is a intentional taking up of space. It's a gathering of Black polyamorous people, the people that love us, the people that support us, and anyone who understands the need for this type of gathering. It's going to be held in Dallas, Texas, July 11th through the 14th. And I like to say it's going to be equal parts conference, activism, and turn up. So it's everything we're seeking to gather together and define ourselves for ourselves, instead of only being given breadcrumbs at the table of white polyamory. We are creating a lavish, soulful spread of Black polyamory.
I mean, I so wish that I would be able to attend. For those who are able to go, you should definitely go, because we need those spaces. And I know as a Black poly person, especially as a queer Black poly person, kind of discovering my polyamory or discovering the term and, you know, being able to have some type of language and framework to situate it in and starting to look for community, I found Black and Poly. I found, these groups, a lot of the groups were very heteronormative, so I still did not feel visible or feel like I was completely with my people. It's kind of one foot in, one foot out. So it is important that we have these spaces where we can see the different ways that, Black polyamory can manifest. So yeah, definitely if you're able to go, I suggest that you check it out. You go because I think it's just something that is very needed, very much needed. And I've definitely seen it in my time of trying to find community. Is desperately needed. And I like being able to engage with people in person. So I don't knock online resources. They are very helpful, and I utilize a lot of online. I think online community is great too, but there's nothing like sharing space in real time with people and you being able to physically see, touch, hear,
Right.
all these different iterations of how this can manifest. It's just, there's no comparison to that.
Right. And my experience has been thus far that creating those offline spaces in which you connect with the people that you have begin to build relationships with online, it even strengthens your online connection, right? So I want people to understand that Black and Poly is not a Facebook group. It's not something that we just do on the internet, that we are out here actively living our lives, doing our jobs, paying our bills, raising our children, that we're doing life this way. And I want to talk about the ways in which we are doing life and the situations that arise for us as young Black and Poly people, as older Black and Poly people married. At every iteration of Black and polyamorous, I want us to come out and be represented and to speak our truth. So if you want more information about the event, there's a couple of ways. You can find us on all social media, Black Poly Pride. We're Black Poly Pride 1 on Twitter. You can go to www.blackpolypride.com. All the information that you need for the event is there. You can buy your tickets. You can register. We have a host hotel set up that you can go ahead and reserve your room. And if you have any questions that you kind of want to reach out to me directly for, you can send an email to blackpolypride@gmail.com. And I tried to make all the information as available as possible for you guys to find it and be able to come out to Dallas and be a part of it. We have about a month. We have 6 weeks until the time. I guess it's kind of running a sale. Cop you a cheap ticket and come party with us.
So how did y'all decide to have it in Dallas?
So, like I said, I am one of the founding members of Young Black and Poly, which is a space that we've created for Black Poly people under the age of 35. And one day, just playing around with Facebook analytics, we tried to see where our biggest populations were, right? And so our biggest population is in Atlanta. And Atlanta has lots
ATL.
ATL, right? So we have lots of Black Poly people here, and lots of Black Poly events are held here. So I didn't want to be redundant in that regard, right? I kind of wanted to do something on the other side of the country. And our next biggest population was split between Houston and Dallas. I also am friends with some really awesome people that are part of the poly scene, leaders in the poly scene in Dallas. Sharita McClellan is helping me plan Black Poly Pride and her group.
What is it? Poly Millennium? Dallas, I think it's Dallas Poly Millennium or something.
Yes. So Ruby
earlier this year.
Yes, so Ruby Blues Johnson, who did Black Poly Dallas Millennium last year, is also helping plan and is on the committee for Black Poly Pride.
Fellow NCSS advocate.
Yes, so I have some really awesome people on my team that are kind of backing me up and helping me create this vision. and talking me down when I get scared. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm gonna cancel everything. I'm so nervous. So I have those moments, maybe like, once a day or so. But I am committed to doing this because I've always felt like anything that scares you is exactly what you need to do. So I just kind of leaning into the fear and doing what needs to be done. So that's where I'm at. I'm open. I want to always say I'm always an open book and open to questions. If anyone has questions about polyamory and they want to reach out, if you want to just kind of get a feel for what poly looks and feels like, this would be an amazing event. Saturday, we're going to be doing a series of workshops and conferences to talk about different aspects of Black polyamory. And then we're going to have an amazing pool party that Saturday evening. And we have social events and activities planned throughout the weekend to really build community and kind of just create that bubble of home that we might not feel when we're at our actual homes, right? Because being polyamorous in a monogamous world sometimes can feel very isolating.
Yeah.
So, I'm just in my regular conversation, I was at a doctor's appointment a couple of days ago, and I was talking about my partners, and the nurse stopped and was like, "You just said something about a husband, and then now you're saying something about a wife. I'm confused." And so, I'm okay with having that conversation, but just wouldn't it be nice for a few days if you could just talk openly without having to explain what polyamory is every 5 minutes?
Right, without giving a whole disclaimer and background. I mean, it's the same. I feel the same way about being queer and being poly. Like, it's like this perpetual coming out that I'm so over. So it's like, okay, if we could just not have to do this. I mean, especially people, because of, I'm also married, so because my relationship often presents monogamously, people are just like, I get so many questions, which is why I definitely wanted to let people know about this event so that they can really kind of experience certain things for themselves and get some in-person education and camaraderie and all that, because I get so many questions about polyamory and about, kind of how does it work, and there's all types of things. So I think it'll be a really good resource. I wanted to ask, what is it that separates Black Poly Pride from other poly events or other Black poly events? What is it that it fulfilling that other events haven't done?
So what we're good at, right? I think the Black polyamorous community throws some amazing parties, right? We can get together and party in different cities, and it's amazing. There's turn-ups in Atlanta, there's turn-ups in Vegas, there's turn-ups in Dallas, there's turn-ups in Philadelphia. There's parties everywhere, right? And we also can do some education. So we'll do conferences, we'll do 101 classes, we'll have stuff like that. But I don't think we do enough of combining those two things, social aspect and also educational aspect. And then this kind of brings the social and the educational together to create kind of that community building and activism. I would really love for Dallas to be inundated with Black people who love more than one, right? I want to walk around the city and see my people. So I think it's coming together for a dual purpose, just not just to have fun or not just to learn and educate, but to kind of bring us all together so that we can both learn together and share our experiences, but also have a lot of fun. That is my intention.
I that's definitely valid. As someone who attends so many conferences, I am well aware, especially looking at kind of the intersections of all the ish that I got going on, whether it's poly stuff, leather, /kink, all of that. There a lot of times is that separation of the educational and the recreational, and we definitely need both. And so having something that's going to support family, that's going to support community, that supports you having a good time and also learning something, really kind of covering all the bases, is even though people may not realize this or whatever, believe it or not, it's just not very common. to have something.
Right.
When I go to these conferences, you know, it's not balanced. Like, they may be like, oh, well, we'll have like one little play party or something, or one little meet and greet, you know, on the first day when most people aren't even there, and then it's just workshops, classes, and that's it. Or it's, okay, we're doing all these different activities or whatever, but there's no structured educational component. So that is something that is very prevalent in the conference / event scene, and so it is important to be able to bring that together.
One of the things that I personally need is to decompress, right? So when you spend your days talking about, you know, emotional things and talking about the way we need to carve out place for ourselves in this world, I then need like life affirming fun and joy, and to just enjoy the life that I have, right? So that balance, I think, is what brings us back together and motivates us to continue living this very intentional, courageous life. You have to take time to like smell the roses that you're fertilizing.
Right. I mean, it's that thing of work hard, play hard. We a lot of times have the work hard part down. But, you know, we need to balance that out, and be able to, and because joy is important. It is a radical act, you know, to pursue joy, pursue pleasure, pursue education and fun and community in a world that does not want you to have any of those things. So even just by virtue of us coming together and sharing space and having a good time, that in and of itself is also a radical thing. Us, you know, taking the initiative to educate one another, learn from one another's experiences and stuff. All of those things are radical. So it's, you know.
Right. Our existence is, and I say this all the time, I think what my Twitter says right now is that my existence is rebellion, right? So, so just by virtue of the fact that I am here, and I am proud, and I am taking up space, that's my rebellion against what everyone wants, and my choice to be who I want to be. So this is really the perfect place for me to talk about this is radical queer blackness. That's what we're doing here, and I'm really, it's personal for me. It's a very personal thing that I didn't expect. Like, I didn't expect that planning a conference would feel so emotional, right? But it is very much something that I'm pouring myself into. And I'm looking for my community to support me in the ways that they can. For anyone who can't make it, if you can't come, we do have other ways that you can support us. We have a donation link on our website. We have a Cash App. We are accepting donations of, you know, any amount or any kind, just to go towards the incidentals of the conference. Like, I can't even go into like the little things that you forgot to, you know, account for. But honestly, this is just love. Like, this, you know, creating a website, labor of love, creating the logo, labor of love. It's all like, it's my love for my community. And honestly, my co-creator and I have really just been pouring our heart and souls into this for months. And so we are hoping that energy that we put into it will come through when you guys join us in Dallas, and you can tell.
I have no doubt. Like, I really have no doubt that it'll come through. I mean, I think that it shows a lot, you know, how important it is to you, and that it's something that you are very much invested in. And I think that something that you mentioned a few times is about doing something intentionally. And my folks who've been listening, like, to the podcast since I started, know that I always talk about being deliberate, being very, you know, intentional, and understanding that, like, that we do those things in our day-to-day lives. And so really you get to see ways that people who look like you and who love like you, who, the ways that they are, like, kind of doing this radical thing in their day-to-day life, that to us may not feel radical when you're doing it. But it is because there's so much oppression and marginalization that we face, it's a radical act just to even do it. Like, you survive is radical, or if they don't want you to survive. You know, you're living and loving in this unapologetic way. You're being true to yourself. You're not, you know, conforming, whatever. all those things are radical, and so it shows like the things that we do in our everyday lives. It doesn't just look like rallies and protests and legislation or whatever. It looks like I woke my black ass up. I'm loving my black ass wife. I got this, I'm all these things.
It
looks
means that
like that.
it means that me and my queer ass polyamorous ass family are going to the family barbecue, right? That's what it looks like some days.
Right. That it's like we're doing regular ass shit, But I think that it's important to see that. It's like it goes back to that possibility model thing. Like it's regular, but at the same time, we didn't see this. It's not like we got examples of this when we were growing up. So like you said, we are that transitional generation, and my wife and I talk about that a lot. Like it's us. We're the ones who are showing like that things can look different, that we can navigate these things differently. We didn't see, even though it's like this is just our lives, we didn't see a polycule, especially a black one, a black queer one. What? We didn't see that, depicted in any media or anything like that. I didn't see, someone who looked like me married and then also, nurturing other relationships and stuff like that. Like, what? And then add power exchange? We ain't going to get into that. So it's like these are things that we did not see, so that we're able to exemplify. And so it can get kind of draining and tiring to always have to be that person, which is why it's important to have that balance to, be able to play hard too, because it can be a lot. You are a living, kind of like example of possibility. That's a lot. You just live in your regular life, but it is a lot.
Yeah, that sums it up. It's my regular life, but it is a lot. That's like a great soundbite for it. I am really hoping that everyone kind of catches the wave and understands what I'm trying to do. And that I want people who are supportive of polyamory and who have questions about polyamory and all that. I want us to have like a range of people who are attending the event so that we can kind of meet everyone where they are and really kind of talk about polyamory on different levels. Like if this is something you're just not interested in, or is it something that you've been doing for 20 years, and how those conversations can help us all. Like just a conversation between someone new and someone older is how we can help each other and how we can kind of add things to one another.
Yeah, seeing those examples of like long-term relationships, long-term polycules, stuff like that, I think is awesome too, because even if you look at, for one, even as Black people, we don't have a lot of examples of just long-term Black love. So we always kind of go to the same examples all the time because we don't have that many to choose from. People talk about, like the Cosby Show and blah, blah, it's like that kind of thing. We don't have many examples, so we have even less, examples looking at it from a poly perspective. So I think that's something that will be valuable that folks will be able to see, like, we ain't new to this. Like, we new to this, we true to this type of thing. Like, we've been,
right.
This is not like
this is not a
thing.
fad.
Like,
this is not new.
It's not. Like, we've been poly, we've been out here. We've been out here in these streets, been poly, we've been. So it's like, this thing has been going on. So I think it's really important. I mean, just like, when you said like, okay, I've been actively, non-monogamous for X amount of years, it's like we are that generation that can exemplify that, which is why I'm sure why I get so many damn questions, because we're the resident Black poly folks.
Right.
Folks don't know a lot of people who can say they've been, non-monogamous for like a long time. A decade is a long time, so and we're young. So that's a big chunk of our lives. It's really important to me. It's really like awesome to me that people get to have that example and they can go and like connect with people who are new and who are more established and see that this is not like something that's like necessarily a fling. You can have a fling if you want to. Hey, I'm not knocking no flings, okay? I've had my share, but we can also do these long-term sustainable relationships. I've been with my wife 7 years. I've had my alpha girl for a few years, but we've known each other for even longer. So it's like, it's possible for us to, for these things to be long-term and sustainable too. It's not like that's just something that I, tried out for. But that's okay too. If it's just something that you tried out and you're like, cool. But we have the whole spectrum.
Right. That is exactly what I'm trying to illustrate. But yeah, if you have any more questions or things that if I left anything out, I guess I just wanted to point out too that Dallas is a really dope city. That I just really want, like, it's really dopely situated for us to enjoy, like, the downtown area and to kind of enjoy some nightlife and, kind of just get into what the city has to offer. So I'm personally, like, really looking forward to gathering in Dallas. Yep.
I think it's going to be awesome. I haven't been to Dallas. I really wish that could be my time to go. I'll see what can happen. I mean, I have, like, so many other, like, trips that are around the same time. So that's the only, summertime is, like, concentrated with conferences and events and stuff. But I just think that it's awesome. I'm glad that you all came together to do it because it's needed for sure. And it's just awesome to see, you living your black ass life and sharing that with other people. So y'all already know I will include Shanae's information in the show notes. So I'll include the social media info for Black Poly Pride, and I'll make sure have the flyer, all that kind of stuff, so that you can get your coins together. Go ahead and cop that Southwest flight. If you got to get on Spirit, do what you got to do. So you can get to, so you can get to Dallas and have a good time with some bomb-ass black folks. I mean, that's always my idea of a good time, so I don't see, with this.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. It was long overdue. I'm glad I got you. I will probably harass you some other time.
Absolutely. I will be back. I definitely, if not before Dallas, I'll definitely be back after Dallas to tell you guys about it.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I definitely would like a recap, like, just kind of, okay, how did everything go? Especially if I'm not able to be there. I'm going to be like, okay, tell me. Now I'm being nosy because
right.
Right.
So we're gonna see what we can work out. I want you there. Listen, LA is not that far from Dallas.
No, it's not about the distance. It's not about the distance at all. It's just the timing. I got to see, am I going to be on the other side of the country at that time? So at a conference. So yeah, because the distance, I'm like, oh, this is actually good. Something that's a little closer to me. But I digress. Y'all don't need to know about all my personal stuff. Thank you for being on. Thanks y'all for listening. All that good stuff. And I'm out.
Black Radical Queer Podcast is all about intersectionality and Black queer folks sharing our stories on our own terms. We navigate an array of identities, and BRQ is an outlet where we can see the spectrum of those identities reflected, explored, and celebrated. Black Radical Queer is a ManeHustle Media podcast hosted by Javi Nicole, produced and edited by Charmaine Johnson. Music is by Publicity. You can find us on social media by looking up Black Rad Queer as BLK RAD QWR. We are on Facebook as well as Instagram and Twitter. Same handle regardless, at Black Rad Queer. BLK RAD QWR. We also have a Facebook discussion group that's just called BRQ Discussion Group, and you can also listen wherever you get your podcasts. So we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, Google Play, all those types of things, and we have our home base that's on Libsyn, so you can listen on there as well. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Make sure you come on back around next week to see what we have for you, and all right, y'all, I'm out.
ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.